Welcome back to the Neo Marketing Podcast. I'm Pritch Pritchard, and Kyle Golding is here with me. Today we're going to talk about what to do if you get caught in the crosshairs of cancel culture.
Ooh.
Welcome to the Golding Group Neo Marketing Podcast, a bi-weekly discussion of best practices, latest trends, and modern techniques for professional business communication, including advertising, marketing, digital channels, social media, public relations, and alternative options.
Kyle, how are you this morning, sir?
I'm fantastic, Pritch. Good to see you today.
Better to be seen than viewed. That's what I always say.
I agree with that 100%.
So I want to talk today about a phenomena that I see really ramping up. It's been around for a little while. I see more and more people getting caught in the crosshairs of what's known as the cancel culture.
The dreaded cancel culture.
Dreaded cancel culture. Just so everybody understands, what we're talking about. Cancel culture is the canceling or withdrawing of support from a person or organization. At this point in time, I would call it public shaming.
Public shaming to the extreme.
To the extreme,
yes.
Exactly. It's typically mobilized by social media, Twitter in particular, but others. And I think it's that medium that has allowed the cancel culture to grow to the beast that it is today.
Yes, 100%.
And it's often associated with the demand for something.
Yes.
Fire the dude, right?
Gotta go, right?
Boycott. The goal to destroy online reputations.
Yes. And not even temporary, like you said, like the demand maybe is for someone to be fired or relieved of a position of authority or something of that nature, or maybe their business or their career suffers financially. But the problem, the biggest there's a ton of problems with cancel culture. One of the biggest problems is it's not enough to say, maybe an actor says something that's controversial and the people say, hey, we're not going to go see their next film. The cancel culture doesn't stop there. They literally want that person to never be able to work ever again, right, which is really unrealistic and insane, I think is one of the ways to describe it.
Well, and what's interesting is that for celebrities in particular, cancel culture doesn't impact them much at all.
Right.
But it's for the other folks.
Right.
And here's some examples. Just you'll remember these things, right? Papa John's.
Yes.
With Schneider using the N-word.
Yes.
Right? He got canceled really fast and fired, actually.
And he's gone, and he's out of the company he founded.
Right.
Which is a pretty severe. What he did was unacceptable,
unconscionable,
but
right?
It was not a small penalty.
No,
it was a massive
penalty. Yeah.
Yes.
United Airlines, and of course this goes back a couple of years to where they drug that physician off the airplane.
Right.
Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A.
And in fact,
that was last year.
And Chick-fil-A is kind of reversed course on a lot of the things that were getting them canceled, if you will, and almost to their detriment now, because the audience that was so steadfast in supporting them when one side was trying to cancel them now is very confused about why they went in that direction. And at the end of the day, a lot of people right in the middle of all this are like, can I just get a chicken sandwich?
Right, exactly. The most recent one, Ellen DeGeneres. A couple of the executives on her production company got fired,
right?
Because of
a lot of feedback online,
and a lot of injury, right? A lot of feedback online. My favorite, though, is the New York Times publisher, who got fired because his employees took exception to running an editorial by Representative Tom Cotton.
Yes, I remember that.
They did not like.
Yes,
and so he's out. The point about cancel culture is nobody's immune. Now, these are some pretty big names.
Right.
But then you remember that girl walking her dog in Central Park.
Central Park, right.
She was yelling at the bird watcher, and ultimately, once that video went viral, she got canceled completely.
Yes.
She lost her dog. She lost her home. I mean, there was a great loss there, and she was relative nobody.
She was a regular person. She got caught up in the fact that the whole thing was on video. It was documented. And then the topic was sensitive. Yes. Calling the police on African-American men. We all know the situations that are happening right now in those scenarios. And so a lot of people were canceling her. Was she created a scenario that was maybe detrimental to the man who was just simply
absolutely just watching
and
birds.
he was in the because her dog was off the leash, and
Right.
so he was in the right to ask her.
Right.
She I think definitely way overreacted. There's a whole bunch of variables that go into it, but at the end of the day, you're right. Two people who had no notoriety at all ended up in the middle of this because their actions were found to be disdain-worthy by the cancel culture warriors out there on social media.
On social media, absolutely. On the one hand, it gives consumers a voice.
Sure, always that's a good thing.
There's a power to it.
Right.
It gives people a voice that maybe didn't have a voice before.
Right.
My concern.
Often people deserve the negative feedback, the pushback, like the Papa John's thing. That was language that
Right.
was that we
Harvey
all
Weinstein,
understand.
Nope, nobody argues with that.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody
yeah.
argues with that.
Right.
But what worries me in this part of society at this point in time, it's gone overboard. It's gotten
sure.
vicious, and in many cases, I think it's unfounded.
Yes.
The New York Times publisher, for crying out loud, or the editor, I guess, is who it was. So, anyway, it's an issue,
Right.
and it's getting to be a bigger issue. And we still have a lot of time before the election. It's going to get worse. It's going to get more vicious.
Sure.
And so, for anybody who's caught in the crosshairs, what the hell do you do?
Well, and
So that's what I'm going to talk about
That's
next.
really the biggest problem because as human beings, look, none of us are perfect. We all can make mistakes. Some mistakes are more egregious than others. Some are a slip of the tongue or misunderstanding. Some of them are, wow, you're really doing some stuff that's just disgusting and unacceptable.
And some of it's a comment that you made 33 years ago.
Some of it is something I did as a teenager, et cetera, et cetera. The problem with cancel culture, another problem, is the inability to allow that person to say, you know what, that thing I did as a teenager, that wasn't right because they didn't have the experience in the world, they were ignorant, whatever the
Right.
scenarios. And as an adult, I've learned through this process, and I understand the error in my ways, and I want to be a better person. And we're all doing that on a regular basis anyways. Every
Trying
day that
to,
we're going out
right.
and we're interacting with people and we're doing
Right.
things, we're learning lessons, and we're seeing, oh, I could do that better, I could be more appropriate, etc. But the idea that you made one mistake, you can't be redeemed, and now you have to simply go away and not exist anymore, that's just too far.
It's crazy. And what I'm seeing...
And it's no benefit to the benefit of the human race is for people to learn from mistakes and get better.
Exactly.
Improvement is better.
Improvement
is
is
good.
best. Absolutely. And it's almost like I'm going to cancel. I've seen this personally in my own family. I'm going to cancel you because you don't think the same way I think.
Right, which is the exact opposite of what you should be trying to do. You should always be trying to engage people who think different than you, have a discussion, have a debate, bring up points of context, and if you're right, bring them to your side of the argument, and if you're wrong, they bring you to their side of their argument, or at the very least, recognize that you both have viable opinions, because again, opinions aren't perfect, and everyone has them, and you're entitled to them.
Right.
And sometimes it's just like, okay, that's fine, we'll agree to disagree, but that doesn't happen in cancel
That doesn't happen in cancel culture. So you're the organization that's caught in the crosshairs. The first step to recovery is stay calm.
Yes.
Don't do anything.
Don't overreact.
Exactly. And I mentioned there were corollaries with the apology impulse, and we've talked about that quite a bit on this show.
Great book. You guys got to go check that book out.
This is that moment when you decide whether or not what you did is egregious enough for an apology.
That's right. Because in cancel culture, apology isn't enough.
Right. And if it's not something that your organization stands for,
Right.
Play smart defense. I mean, you can almost always rebrand, right? If it's a comment by one of your executives that is egregious, that deals with race or whatever, right? And that's not what you stand for as an organization. You can't panic. You should not panic.
Right.
And you should determine whether or not it's something that you need to apologize and or address.
Right.
So step 2 is to be proactive and play smart defense.
Yep.
In most cases, that proactivity is an investigation. Okay, we have these allegations. Everybody gets their day in court, should get their day in court. Don't let the cancel culture not give you that opportunity.
Yes.
The other thing that you can do in particular against the kind of egregious cultural things that happen is to have a morality clause in your employee contract.
It's happening a lot more in 2020 and 2019 than ever before. That's absolutely for sure, because this is the life. This is where we live now. This is our business and our social life and our personal lives. So they're all intertwined digitally.
Step 2 is to be proactive. Step 3 is to empathize.
Sure.
Empathy matters. This isn't a time to defend. This isn't a time to deny. You need to, as an organization, you need to affirm the feelings of those folks who have been, violated, egreged, whatever, right?
Offended.
Investigations take some time, but it's, everybody's innocent until proven guilty.
And the truth will set you free.
Absolutely. But in this step, as soon as the investigation is wrapped up, you need to communicate the results.
Yes, immediately.
Absolutely.
Remember, everything runs at the speed of light now. There's no file this for in the morning type approach to any type of communication. The minute you know something, you can tell the world that moment.
Right.
And you should.
Absolutely. And then back.
But let me balance that a little bit, though. When things are fluid, when things are happening on the ground with immediacy,
right.
When things aren't set, when you haven't had a chance to investigate, when you actually don't know all the facts, typically what comes out the fastest is the least accurate.
Right.
So
first reports are always wrong.
First reports are always wrong. Those first 24 hours, and if you guys don't believe me, go look at any news story out there and go back to what they said the moment it broke, and then look what happened the day after that. It's just how that's how things work, and the speed of our communication now has amplified that to 1,000,000. So you want to be quick, and you want to be intentional, but you can't be so fast that you get out in front of yourself without that investigation
Absolutely.
aspect.
I tell my students that in crisis communications, you get 1 hour. And folks go, wow, you don't have that much time with social media. Yeah, you do. An hour will give you time to get information and allow you to present a statement while you're still relevant, but you're not being pushed into doing something stupid.
Right.
Okay.
It also depends if that hour is it 10 a.m., 2 p.m., or 2 a.m.
Right.
There are some differences there as well.
A little bit, yeah. But I still advocate an hour.
Yeah.
You get
go too fast. Go too fast, and you're liable to make mistakes, or maybe even make things worse.
Go too slow,
and it doesn't matter
as well. That's right. Exactly. Step 4 is back your words with action.
There it is.
We've talked about
Don't
that
be hollow.
a lot before,
Don't be hollow in your approach.
That's exactly right. I mean, putting up the rainbow on Pride Month, but what else are you doing as an organization?
Right. Back it up with actions.
Back it up with actions and communicate what you're doing.
The public today, they're so smart. They're so connected via these tools and these channels that they sniff out inauthenticity.
Absolutely.
And if you're doing something to pander to them, they figure it out. And if you do too much pandering, you've actually now flipped the scenario where you went from that we'll do this so they'll like us to we pander to them and now they dislike us.
Absolutely. And actually that dislike is even more intense than if you'd done nothing at all.
For sure.
Absolutely. So step 5, rally your supporters.
Yep.
We've talked about that. Get your advocates engaged.
And occasionally that happens outside of your efforts and first. And
right.
If you happen to be in a scenario where your supporters show up, they white knight for you before you even get a chance to do the investigation and complete your hour of process, then let it go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing better than real people who are not invested in the scenario defending you based on the facts that they understand.
Absolutely. So continue to grow that relationship because that's just proven its worth at that point in time.
And that's being proactive and being in relationships with your audience, not in selling cycles.
Right, exactly. And the last thing to remember is that you're not going to please everybody.
Never.
And oh, by the way, the haters always come first.
That's right.
And in the cancel culture, it is hate. Right?
Haters gonna hate.
Haters gonna hate. But you have a much better chance of coming through with your reputation intact if you follow those steps.
Yes.
And let me go back to number one, because people are going, oh my God, we got to do something,
Oh.
right? Okay. No, you don't. The CEO of Goya proved that to be the case.
Right. When in doubt, slow down.
Slow down.
Breathe. Take that hour and try to assess with as much information as possible. That's why we gave you an hour
Right.
to figure that out.
Right.
And if you still don't feel right at the end of the hour, then you reassess again.
Well, and that staying calm, do you have something you need to apologize for? And the statement by this Goya CEO was nothing more than what one would be polite with any president.
Yes,
right?
of course.
And he said, no, I'm not apologizing
Yeah.
because he didn't do anything wrong.
No, in fact, he was there to speak on minority business owners being successful in the United States. That's a great thing.
That's a great thing.
Success for minority business owners. Fantastic. Happy to hear about it. The fact that it made people angry enough to try to cancel them, on its face is a little bit ridiculous. They could have overreacted and made it worse. Instead, like you said, they stayed calm. They stuck to who they were. They already had great champions in the market because they have good relationships with their audience. People understood where they were coming from, and it worked itself out without them. Outside of, they made a statement, but they didn't have to do a ton of work.
Right.
They simply had to be who they were and
stand
continue what
firm.
they were already doing because they were
Right.
already working and acting ethically and with their audience in mind.
Absolutely. And to the benefit of society.
There you go.
So, lots of corollaries with the apology impulse,
Yep.
right? The knee-jerk reaction. I think if you can follow these steps, if you can stay disciplined enough to go through this process,
Right.
that you're going to stand a much better chance of.
Let me give you one more. Let me give you a bonus. And this is a personal philosophy of mine, and so I hope you guys can take it. You can use this in a personal scenario in social media and other online activities. You definitely can use it in a business scenario. Obviously, we use social media and digital channels in business to promote our business and to try to attract the right audience and create a conversation and relationships like that. There's a lot of things happening in the world that your brand just doesn't need to wade into.
Right. Exactly.
It doesn't include
Thank
you.
you.
No one's expecting it from
Right.
you. There's nothing that what you do relates to it. And at the end of the day, a lot of people wade themselves into controversy, sort of, and it goes back to that authenticity issue, sort of trying to glom onto all the attention that's there that day.
Right.
And you end up creating negative attention for yourself.
Absolutely.
So when in doubt, like you said earlier, breathe, take your time. But if you don't have to,
No.
don't.
Worst thing an organization can do is to take a political stance that's not embedded in who they are.
Exactly.
Right? There's lots of downside. We could do a whole podcast
Right.
on that. But
You're much better off spending your time building positive
Community.
relationships, building your community around your product or service, moving your organization forward. Now, sometimes it happens. Sometimes it shows up on your front doorstep, and you address it, or there's something within your industry that's directly connected to the controversy, to the issue, etc. And you have to stand up and say, here's where we see ourselves, and that's where you follow all the advice that Pritch gave you to this point. But if you could simply say, no one's expecting anything from us, and we can move forward without it, really consider that.
yeah, don't believe the press that this generation needs you to be engaged in a political situation. I don't. It's not doesn't make sense unless it makes sense for the business that you're in.
Think about the last 10 immediate Twitter war, cancel culture. Here's the trending topic. We're getting this person kicked out today. We're doing this. We're shutting this business down. Think about the last 10 things you heard of. What's happening today, a week later, a day later, a month later, a year later?
Right.
If it's something that's going to blow over, something that's going to be temporary, and you don't need to, let it slide.
Absolutely.
Focus on the positive and moving your organization forward in great ways, and let the other things around you work themselves out unless it becomes too connected to you, too big, too important, or too much just on your front doorstep.
And then you need to make a decision. Absolutely, you do.
And typically, if your organization is really run well, you have a great business plan in place, you have strategy, you understand what your company values are, you understand who you are as a company, whether it's based on your founder, your CEO, the employees that work there, the product that you make, the audience you serve, whatever it is. If you have a really run organization, you already understand where you should be on these things, and you simply just make that statement, which is what Goya did. They simply made a statement of here's who we are and what we do, and that's all that was necessary.
That's all that was necessary. Absolutely.
You don't have to go 200 and 300 and 400% in a certain direction in order to defend yourself against the online mob.
Yeah. Bam. There you go. So cancel the cancel culture.
Please do. Someone please stop it. Make it go away. And you know how we make cancel culture go away? Number one, we don't feed into it. Number two, we don't respond to it. And number three, we spend our time as individuals, as communicators, as brands, putting out positive interaction, creating community, doing things that are good for everyone.
Right.
That's the social in social media is being social, right? So if we all act like that online, and occasionally when someone does something that is worthy of the scorn, they'll get theirs.
Right.
But if all of us are spending all of our time trying to help each other, trying to benefit each other, to try to create positive relationships, to be collaborative, then the cancel culture value goes away. It loses all its steam, and eventually it's not a thing. Because at one point in the world, it wasn't a thing.
It wasn't.
It could go back if we all focus on pushing out the negativity and only using that really harsh pushback to things that are essential to do so. Right. There are times where someone in the world does something that the rest of the world goes, no, we're not accepting that. Yep. And that's fine, and those things will happen, and that's when people should be canceled, if you will. But canceling people over minor issues and slip of a tongue or something they did a long time ago or in a different scenario, we have to devalue that in order to get rid of it.
I agree. And just to go back to something you said before, and that is to build that community.
Yes.
But it's not always going to be positive information, because if you're transparent and you're authentic, you're going to fess up to your mistakes, which is what you should do.
Absolutely.
So
when you fess up to your mistakes, when you make a mistake, you admit to it, you move yourself forward. We always talk about, it's you tell people what's happening, the information that we have, how we're going to move forward, how we're going to prevent this from happening again, right? The more emergent that the situation is, the more you need to tell them what's happening and what happens moving forward so it doesn't happen again. But everyone makes mistakes. No person is perfect. No organization is perfect. You can learn from those mistakes. You can better from them. And that's also the devaluation of cancel culture is let people make mistakes, learn from them, admit to them, stand up and say, we're going to do better moving forward. Their actions will speak. They'll either will or they won't.
Right.
And then when they are accused of something that isn't their fault, that they didn't do, you can fight like hell when things are said about you that are not true or they're not attributable to you, if you're open to admitting when you have been wrong in the past.
Absolutely. 6 steps. Most important thing to remember is you're not going to please everybody.
Nope.
So do your best. Stick to your core values.
Right. Focus on who your audience is too.
Right.
If your audience is upset with you, the people that make up your audience, whether it's demographically or socioeconomically or whatever, the people that are buying your product or service on a regular are the ones saying, we're not happy about this. That's a different immediacy than a random sampling of people who don't do business with you, maybe can't do business with you because of geography or other things. And if it's outside of your scope, it goes back to the idea of if you don't have to wade into it, don't. If it's not your audience or have huge influence on your audience, let it ride.
Let it ride.
Because they'll find something else to be angry about soon enough.
Exactly. The attention span of a gnat.
Yes.
Which is okay.
That's the speed of digital communication these days.
Absolutely. Anyway, so I hope we hope you found that helpful. We hope that it can reduce the panic if you get caught in the crosshairs.
We hope you don't.
We hope you don't. So until next time, ciao.
Good luck.
This has been the Golden Group Neo Marketing Podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Tell a friend, leave a review, and engage with us on social media. Thanks for listening.